October 14th, and today's recipe for our Mid-Atlantic states for regional cuisine is going to be cheddar pierogies, which is like a dumpling, right? That's going to get pan fried. So I'm going to show you guys today a couple of things. First, we're going to make a dough. Then we're going to make a quick filling, put those together. And then I'm going to show you how to quickly pan fry them too, okay? So I'm going to start off with the dough. So you guys will have this recipe in your Google Classrooms. It'll also be posted, a link to it in the bottom of the video on YouTube later, okay? So for the dough, I've just got a glass bowl here, right? I'm going to grab 2 cups of just all-purpose flour, all right? And this recipe calls for the King Arthur flour because it is their recipe. If all you have is store-bought, that's fine, right? So remember, I'm going to take my flour. I'm going to use my knife to scrape it off on the top so I get a nice level cut, okay? So I'm going to need 2 of those. One and 2. And same thing, scrape off each cup, level at the top, right? You always want to have a nice level measurement, all right? Just like that. So super simple dough. It's going to be quick. It's going to be a little bit of a wet dough too, which you're going to see. But it will dry out as I mix everything all together, okay? So I'm going to take my flour, and then I'm going to add in a ½ teaspoon of salt, okay? The same thing, make sure that's a nice level measurement. I'm just going to give that a little quick stir just to mix that salt into the flour. All right, and then this is going to get 1 large egg. Remember, tap it on the counter. And if you're worried about getting shells in anything, always crack it into a separate bowl, right? Little dish. So then I can dump that in there, and I don't have to worry about getting any shells. But if you do get shells, use the shell to scoop it out. It'll attract it just like a magnet. All right. And then I'm going to do ½ cup of sour cream. All right, so I get my little ½ cup measure here. Mix this all in. And this is also going to get butter too. So this doesn't need water like a lot of pie doughs would use, because there's plenty of liquid with the sour cream and the egg and moisture from the butter, right? Okay, so nice level, ½ cup. Scrape that in. Get all that yumminess in there. I am going to start stirring this with a spoon. I will switch to my hands at some point because I want to break up that yolk here. Start blending this in. Now I have 4 tablespoons of softened butter. So I've just had the stick of butter sitting out on the counter all day, and I took half of it is going to go into this dough. Okay. So this is just a ½ stick of regular unsalted butter. The other half I have for sauteing things a little bit. So I just want to coat this butter with just a little flour. So it'll be a little less sticky when I put my hands in there. This is great if you've got younger brothers and sisters and things in the house that love to help, because they tend to like this messy stuff, right? So this looks really choppy and grainy. It doesn't look much like a dough yet, right? But what I do is get as much off the spoon as I can here. Right. Clean hands. And I'm just going to go in just like a claw machine, right? I want to break up all those chunks of butter into that flour. This is where it's going to get messy. That's okay. It's part of the fun. Now, this dough can sit up to a couple of days in the fridge. So you can do this the day before, 2 days before you want to make these. You can fill these with all different kinds of flavored mashed potatoes. I said today it's going to be a cheddar version. All right. But you could do more sour cream in the mashed potatoes. You could add in things like chives or seasonings, garlic powder and stuff like that. Mashed potatoes I have today are just seasoned with a little salt and pepper. It's going to look a little rough at first, but I'm going to start getting this into more of a dough. And then this is going to go on the counter here, which I already sanitized and let dry earlier before we started. That way I can work with the dough there. So what I'm going to do is put this dough down. Now, if you have loose flour in the bowl, right? Which I've got a little bit here that didn't quite mix in. Leave it, okay? I can add more flour in after, but I can't take it back out, right? So I find it easiest to work with doughs. You can put a little bit of your body weight behind it. And then you'll see it's a lot easier for the dough to come together than it does in the bowl. Right? It'll feel a little sticky. I want to get this to the point where I'll be able to roll it out, right? This is when you get the messy hands. And get as much off as you can. If you don't have a counter space like this or something, you can do this on a cutting board. Okay, just make sure it's nice and clean. Just working in all that little bit of loose stuff. You can see now that you get nice, smooth dough. Okay. Now the recipe calls for this to sit in the refrigerator for a little bit. I'm just going to let it sit off here to the side for a little while we're doing the filling, and then we'll go back to rolling the dough. Okay. It's a little tacky, but I'm going to leave it the way it is right now because I don't want to add in too much flour and have it too dry because I'm going to put a little flour back on the surface after when I go to roll it out. So to help get some of the sticky stuff off your hands, take some of that extra flour that was in the bowl, just rub it on your hands. And that'll help get all that little loose bits of dough off. That way it's a little bit easier to do some work. It's also good to have some paper towels handy, right? Stop and rinse your hands in between. Okay, so we're gonna put that over there. The next part of this is the filling. Like I said, it's a simple mashed potato filling. So it's great when you have just a little bit of leftover mashed potatoes. So maybe from holidays, Thanksgiving, things like that. You get a couple cups of mashed potatoes, you don't know what to do with them, right? So like I said, this has just got a little salt and pepper mixed in there already. I heated this up in the microwave for a couple of minutes, and I've just had a towel on it, keeping it warm, because I'm going to be adding in some cheddar cheese, okay? So just some shredded cheddar, nothing super fancy. Right? You can shred your own from a block. You can buy it pre-shredded. And this is where you could have fun with that too and mix up the flavors. I could use a little bit of pepper jack cheese, Monterey Jack, right? But you want something that's got a good flavor to it. So just a nice cup of the shredded cheddar cheese, and that's going to go right into the warm mashed potatoes, right? This is the filling. That's why this is super easy, great for leftovers, right? So I want to give this a really good stir because this is what's going to go inside that pierogi dough. And this will get a little bit melty, right? That's fine. It's going to melt when it gets sauteed after anyways. Okay. So I'm going to stick this to the side. And then I'm going to show you while this dough's resting for a few minutes, chopping up some shallots. Okay, so shallots are in the onion family, all right? They have a flavor that is a cross between an onion and a garlic. So if you want to do something with both onion and garlic, opt for a shallot, okay? These are going to be cut same way, and I'm going to use this, not in the filling, but I'm going to use this when I saute them in the pan to give it some really nice flavor, okay? So just like I would with an onion, I'm going to trim a little bit off the top here of that stem end, right? I'm going to keep those little roots intact for right now. So I'm just going to trim that stem end off. I can put this flat upside down, cut through, right through the center of the root, and then I can come in and peel the shallot. So I want to take all those peels off the outside. And my little trash bowl I got going back here, which is a handy thing to have when you're cooking. Or have a trash can close by. And then I'm going to chop this up nice and small, right? This is just going to give a lot of flavor because these are going to get sauteed in a little frying pan, right? A little saute pan with some butter and then the shallots. Okay. Nice and simple. Just throw away all those peels. So with the shallots, you guys can all see, right? I'm going to come in and just, here's my root end here. Come in and do a little cut here. And I'm going to do a couple of cuts this way towards the root, but I'm not cutting through the root. Okay, I want to open this up kind of like a flower. All right. If you want to see more on knife cutting, you can watch Science of Cooking's knife skills video from last week. Okay. And then I'm going to slice down. So my root is still back here. I'm just going to slice this down. And I want to get some really thin cuts, right? So I want small little pieces. I don't want giant pieces of shallots. I just want delicate little pieces. Okay. Cut this piece off here. To the side. Now this one's a little bit taller on this side, so I'm going to do a couple of cuts, but I'm doing it at a 45-degree angle down. Okay. Get my little slices in here. And these I'm just going to put in a little bowl off to the side, just so that way I'll have them ready to go in a few minutes. All right. Put a little bowl here. Put these in. All right. And I've got my chopped shallots, right? And I've got the other half a stick of butter ready for sauteing with that in a little bit, okay? So now, I'm just gonna move some of these crumbs and things off the counter. I'm gonna work with rolling out this dough. Now, this is gonna use a little round cutter, a little circle cutter, okay? Now, you may not have a cutter set at home. This is just a set of cutters here. You can buy these on Amazon. Restaurant supply stores. This is a 3-inch cutter. The recipe actually calls for a 2-inch to make smaller ones. I think those are a little too small. Plus, it'll take a lot more work. So I'll probably get a few less in the recipe for it, but I like them a little bit on the bigger side. So 3-inch cutter, but when you look at it halfway, right, it'll give you a really nice half moon shape pierogi. If you don't have a cutter like this, you can use a drinking glass. Find something that's about the same, 2.5, 3 inches or so, that you can use as your cutter. Okay? But just a regular plastic cookie cutter works good as well. So now I can see that this dough has really kind of softened up nice. Right? It's a nice, easy working dough. I'm going to take a little bit of flour right on the counter. And apparently some on my computer. It's all right. It can be washed. All right. So I'm going to put a little bit on. I'm going to flip this over so I get a little bit on the other side. Now, I've got my rolling pin here. Right? This is just a wood rolling pin. I'm just going to put a little flour on the pin, just a little dusting. Right? And you can see I don't have a ton of flour. It's not a cup of flour. Right? If there's a little too much, push it to the side. You can use that afterwards. Okay? So I've got my dough. Now I'm going to roll this out. Right, it's calling for about 1/8 of an inch thick. So about the same thickness that you would use for like a pie dough. Okay. I'll show you that in a second. Now, when you're cutting these, the pierogies, you want to try and cut them as close as you possibly can. Okay, so I'm just lifting this up on that flour. Make sure I'm not sticking to the counter. You don't want to cut the circles and then find out you can't lift them up. Like I said, it would be a little bit easier. You get a little less spring back. See how the dough's kind of pulling itself back in. It'll do that a little bit less if you let it rest about a half hour. But we ain't got that kind of time. So, right, so just make sure that you're not sticking. And then we're going to take our cutter, right? So you can see the thickness of the dough, right? It's not super thick because you don't want these to be too chewy either, right? I don't want it to be all dough. I want to taste that really good mashed potato filling. Okay. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut some circles. What I want to do is have a little bit of flour, though, right here. Okay. And I'm just going to put my cutter in the flour a little bit. Okay. Just get a little bit on there in between cuts. And then I'm going to come in and start cutting my circles. Right. And like I said, when I do this, though, I want to press the cutter down and just give it a little twist. So I get a really nice clean circle. Every couple come in, dip in the flour every time, doesn't matter. I'll try and get as many as I can, right? Because anytime you have to re-roll a dough, it's never as nice as the first time you roll it, okay? It can be done, but it never comes out quite as smooth. So try and get it in there as close as you can so you have less waste in between. Here. And that'll be good for now, right? So I'm just going to pull out this extra dough. Now, if I was going to re-roll this, I can. I'm probably just going to let this sit to the side and then re-roll it later. If you have too much dough and you don't want to make that many pierogies, you can freeze the dough and then thaw it before, bring it to room temperature before you roll it for another batch, okay? So these are those dough circles, all right? They will shrink up a little bit, like I said, because this dough hasn't had much time to rest, so you can roll these out a little bit bigger, but this will still make a good size pierogies. That's why 2 inches I thought was way too small. Okay. So I'm gonna set the dough circles to the side here just a little bit more workspace. Now, if you find that they shrink up a little bit as you're doing things, you can always just give them a quick little roll out, right? Use your fingers to stretch them out a little more too. So it'll be like that. Now, this is gonna get that filling on the inside, which if you're looking now, right, here's our mashed potato filling. Cheese is a little bit melty. Doesn't need to be all the way. I'm gonna put that to the side. Move some of the stuff out of the way. This is the fun part, right? Making all the mess. So now I'm going to take just a little metal spoon. You can use a tablespoon or so. And I just want to put some filling right in the very center, right? About a teaspoon's worth. Not too much, okay? Because I want to be able to close this. That's why I said you might need to stretch that dough out a little bit with your fingers if it shrinks up too much, okay? So it's probably a little too much filling. I'm going to take a smidge out. And then I want to fold these in half, okay? So fold them over, but I want to give it a good pinch with my fingers all the way around. Like I said, simple as if you were making a ravioli or a dumpling or an empanada or something on that idea, right? Same type of technique, okay? And you're making that half moon. Now to finish these off, I'm going to take just a dinner fork, a little bit of flour, and come in and flour. Just going to give them a little press on the edge, right? Just with the tines of the fork to make sure it's got a really good seal. Okay. And there's my pierogi. This is what I'm going to be pan frying. So I'm going to do this a couple more times. So you can have a couple in the pan at the same time to fry. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger as they shrink up. My spoonful of filling. Okay. And then just fold over. And give your fingers a good little pinch on that dough, right? Don't be shy about it. You're not going to hurt it. But you want to make sure that that filling stays inside the dough. Okay. And you'll get faster at these the more you do them. Okay. There. Right, another one. We want to have something in odd numbers to put on the plate because odd numbers look better in pictures too. Filling. Like I said, this is a nice soft dough. Okay, really easy to work with. Flour. But you will make a big mess on your counter. So just be prepared to have some cleanup work to do after. Okay. And there's the pierogies. All right. So I'm going to put this filling to the side because I know what I'm going to be doing this afternoon, making more of these. The nice thing is you can make these up ahead of time, right? And you can freeze them. All right. So there are instructions in there that you can freeze them and put them in boiling water to thaw them out. You can just let them thaw in the refrigerator and things. But there we go. All right. So now, this is what I got happening here today so you guys can see a little bit better. Okay. Bring this in. This is a little butane stove, right? Like a camping stove, but this is meant for kitchens. So we use this at the school for doing demos. Okay. So I'm going to turn this on to get some little heat going. Not too much. Make sure you guys can see the heat, the flame there, right? Yeah, I want to take some of my other softened butter. Here's my other half a tablespoon. All right. I'm just going to take a good little pat of butter off to let that start melting, right? And I'm doing this only 3 of them right now. So I don't want to use all these shallots because that would be for the whole batch, right? So I'm just going to take and put a few shallots in once this butter melts. Let's give this a second. So I'm going to start with the butter. I'm going to add about a teaspoon-ish or 2's worth of shallots, right? And that way I'm going to be able to just saute this a little bit, get it nice and hot before I put the pierogies in, okay? Now these, I just want to get them in there and get them to a nice little golden brown. Like I said, that mashed potato filling is already cooked. There's nothing in there that's raw that I have to worry about temperature-wise. I just want to make sure they're warm inside and that they have some nice color on the outside. Okay? I'll be able to tip the pan here in a second. So I'm getting a little foaming on the butter, right? You guys can see there. I'll saute those shallots on the heat. This little stove may not seem like it's much, right? But it is very powerful. Okay, so now I'm going to put these pierogies in. I'll just lay them on one side. After a short period of time, I'll be flipping them over to make sure I get the other side. Okay. So if that flame seems like it's getting a little too hot, we can adjust it down just a little bit. And that gold, you can smell the shallots, right? The butter, it's giving it really nice aroma. The shallots are nice. Like I said, a little hint of garlic flavor, a little hint of onion flavor. I'm just looking for a little bit of golden brown color on the one side before I flip it over to the other side. Okay. So that's where you're going to have a nice pair of tongs handy. So it's good if the onions, you know, the shallots, whatever you're cooking with, gets a little bit of color too. So a nice little hint of golden brown, a little translucent. You don't want raw onion flavor. Okay. So I'm going to flip this little guy over. And I'll let them sit for a second and I'll show you. So that heat's getting a little too much now that it's going, and flip to the other side. So I turned it down now, some down lower, right? Nice plate here, ready to go. So golden brown color on both sides. Shut this off. I could probably let these go just a little bit longer, but time-wise, I don't want to. You guys waiting. All right. So I've got my little plate here. Just a chef trick, right? Things in 3s and odd numbers, right? More visually appealing. Now, I don't want to waste that butter and those shallots, right? Put them over the top, right? Because that's our extra flavor. Now, often pierogies are eaten with a little bit of sour cream as well. Right in the center. And that's it. That is your pierogies. Okay? All right. So we're going to stop recording for now so I can answer any questions you guys might have. Until next time.